Chief meteorologist for KABC and a Los Angeles legend, Dallas Raines. Hey,
Oh my goodness, Amy, great to see you.
good to see you. It's been a minute, but I'm so excited for you. Congratulations on 40 years.
Can you believe that? I can't believe it either. When I first came out to KBC, and my wife and I was working at CNN, and we had lots of weather going on all the time, right? And some of my buddies said, "You're going to Los Angeles. That's a Mediterranean climate. You won't have any hurricanes. What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm just going to go out for a couple of years and just enjoy it, and then maybe come back onto the East Coast." And that was 40 years ago, Amy.
It really is an incredible accomplishment. Do you
Yeah.
remember back to like starting the job? I mean, what are your first memories?
Oh, absolutely. When I first came in, I actually had, is fascinating. I had a dream while I was still in Atlanta that I was walking up to a studio with these beautiful palm trees. And I thought that was a weird dream. I even told my wife, I said, that was kind of odd to have this dream because maybe it's a Florida studio that I'm going to be working for, a television station. And the first day I walked into this building, it was exactly kind of like a premonition.
Wow.
It was truly unbelievable. I walked up and there these beautiful palm trees that says KABC, Los Angeles. And I thought, oh my gosh, that came true. But it's been so exciting because the weather out here, yes, is Mediterranean, as you know, but we're surrounded by all these microclimates. 1 hour you can ski and snowboard up in the local mountains. We have beaches. We have two different types of deserts. We have a high desert, the Mojave Desert. We have the Sonoran Desert. So, and then the valleys and all the little valley areas have a little different microclimates. So it turned out a lot more challenging than I thought it would be, coming from Florida and Georgia and having to deal with tornadoes and hurricanes, even though, as you know, we've had a couple of twisters.
Of course, yes. I mean, that really you can't rule anything out, and it's crazy because the reputation is that it's always sunny in Southern Cal.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
not
And,
true.
oh, there used to be a great song. I can't remember who did the song, but it was like, "It never rains in California, but girl, let me warn you, it pours, it pours." And it's so true. In the wintertime, if we get a El Nino, I mean, I've seen, not quite as heavy as when I was in Florida, right? I mean, nothing's like a tropical downpour. But I've seen rain out here that is amazing. And of course, everyone sees it when they see the mudslides and everything from California. So I think people just kind of forget that we have a winter season, and it can be pretty prolific.
When you talk about that here, even in recent times, we've had some wild weather come through.
Yes. Yeah.
The wildfires were exceptional, and that's all driven by the wind. You've got
Right.
the rain that came after. You mentioned the mudslides.
Yeah.
Do you see one hazard as superseding another, or even an earthquake?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, the worst things that can happen, and I've been through two big earthquakes. I've been here so long. I think without a doubt the earthquakes are the scariest. If it's above a 6 or 6.5 and the epicenter is close to populated areas, that's the most frightening. But followed very closely by the fires. The fires are just so frightening because we can, as meteorologists, we can forecast the atmospheric conditions that will produce these types of winds, but trying to figure out how to stop the ignition point of these. And they're all caused by people. 95 to 98% of all the fires in Southern California are generated by people. Now, that's not necessarily an arson, but it is people doing maybe something really not very smart, a bad decision. I think that happened east just a little while ago, a couple of big fires back east where they had some red flag warnings, had winds kind of like we did. And I heard on the news that someone decided they'd go out and make some s'mores or something. And, the winds were blowing 45 miles an hour. So people make mistakes. But once the fires are initiated and the winds are blowing, say at hurricane velocity like we had, it's almost impossible to stop them. They really are, the aircraft at a certain velocity, I think it's about 50 knots right in there or just below, fixed wing aircraft cannot fly, helicopters cannot fly. And these things are just, and it's so populated, right? We've built, a big community here of what, 25 million people, and we all live in these little canyons. I mean, I've lived out of the 40 years, I've lived in quite a few houses. My wife is a flipper. He flips a house every 2 years.
Wow.
About half of those homes we've lived in have been in canyons. And we love it because it's so beautiful. We have deer and wildlife in the yard. But when the Santa Ana winds blow, it becomes very frightening. I mean,
Yeah.
we think, oh, dear Lord, hope nobody starts a fire.
Right. I had a good conversation with Chris Christie, there, one of your colleagues, about this.
Yeah,
He
love Chris.
agreed as well. Yeah, Chris is great. He's such a talented journalist, but he really said the same thing as you after witnessing this, firsthand, that the wildfires are terrifying. But the earthquake, I was in Camarillo. I lived in Camarillo during a portion of my early career, and
Right.
I also was in the Northridge earthquake, which was, I think, a 7.4.
That was 94. That was a huge quake. I was in
Yeah,
that one too. That was frightening.
very terrifying.
Were you in the Northridge area, Amy, when that quake?
I was just a block from CSUN, which of course had a partial collapse, but it was terrifying because I was, from the Midwest. I'd never been in an earthquake. I had no idea. And these people I was staying with, they grabbed their go bags, they went outside, they were totally ready for it.
Right. It's frightening because it's not like a weather event where we have a tornado watch, we see the conditions developing, the winds start to blow from the sun. You kind of feel this going to happen over the next, 18 hours or whatever. Hurricanes, same deal. All this, but this thing, you get up one morning, it's like today, everything's beautiful, and all of a sudden an atomic bomb hits. Just boom, like that. It really is frightening.
One thing I think a lot of people probably might be surprised to learn about you, because you're such an icon for Los Angeles, is that you are from the South and you
Yeah.
actually have a lot of experience with severe weather and even storm chasing.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what I got interested in meteorology. I was in the sixth grade. And I've noticed over the years, talking to a lot of my colleagues did the same thing that I did. Some people were, say, lived in the Northeast and a nor'easter hit when they were a little boy, a little girl, and they became fascinated. Well, mine was a tornado. We had a tornado warning for my school. In my school, we were in the second floor. We had all these glass looking out the windows, looking out to the west, and lots of trees, of course, in the south. And they said, you need to get down in the basement, everyone. And I thought, wow, I'm going to hide in a closet. And so I hid in a closet. I'm in the sixth grade, right? I hide in a closet. And when I hear that everyone is evacuated from the room, I come out. And I'm staring out the window, and there's this funnel cloud coming right. It hadn't touched down. It's a funnel cloud, but the tops of the trees were like, and then all of a sudden I was being lifted up. But it was Coach McElby, the football coach. He grabs me and says, you are one crazy little guy. What are you doing? And it touched down in a pecan orchard east of our little town I grew up in Georgia. And I had to have my mom and dad drive me out there because I was in the sixth grade. And I saw these huge pecan trees just ripped out of the ground. And at that time, Amy, something just really snapped and said, you need to learn how this happens. And so I remember at the time, being older, my mom had just bought a set of World Book encyclopedias, which was so cool. And I read every single thing I could on weather in those encyclopedias. So that's kind of how it started, right?
Right.
So, yes, I was used to living in Georgia, Florida, going to school at Florida State, seeing a lot of tropical weather. So, yeah. And then I tornado chase every year, too, that I can. Sometimes I'll miss a season, but I generally go out with Tempest Tours. I don't know if you know Bill Reed, great guy.
Of course.
And I go out with him every year to get back in the action and, get my forecasting skills up for that, too. But
there really is nothing like seeing the weather in person, but it does take an adventurous spirit. It does take a little bit of courage to get out there and do it, because even when you know what's going to happen, these are intense. This is Mother Nature's force right in front of you.
It's so true. The first twister that I was really close to, I was a little disappointed in myself in how frightened I was. I'm not a macho guy, but I was really, ready to get in this twister. And when it formed, I was in southeastern Colorado, and it literally, we'd been following this supercell for like an hour. And then all of a sudden it produced. And when it did, the funnel was right over me and it just came down. I was within an eighth of a mile. And of course, it was this huge debris field spinning up before the actual vapor funnel made it to the ground. And I jumped in the car and I hit the I hit the throttle and just went, I'm out of here. And I did stop, of course, to go back and see everything, but I was really nervous. I thought, man, this thing is gonna, it's gonna kill me. I'm so close to it. So it takes a little to get out there and do it. It's not for everybody, but
it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Right.
But you're a bold guy. I mean, when you talk about hitting the throttle, you also have become, are you officially a race car driver? Is that how I would describe it?
SCCA license, which is a regional license that I got when I first came out. I'd always loved racing when I grew up in Georgia. Most Georgia kids love NASCAR. And my good buddy's father owned a Oldsmobile Cadillac dealership. And every Saturday night, my buddy Steve, whose dad owned the dealership, we would go down and get some junker off the used car. Like, it was usually a Volkswagen Beetle. And then we would go out in these cornfields and we would pretend like we were Formula One racers. We would make little races. And then when I came to California, I was invited to race in the Grand Prix of Toyota. It was used to be Toyota's, now it's Acura, of Long Beach. And so it would be a celebrity race along with professionals. And so I started driving, and Danny McKeever, who was fast lane, said, man, you're pretty good. You're going to qualify in the front row, and you've got good skills. So I kind of fell in love with it. Then I bought a race car. I bought a little Porsche Cayman, which is a little mid-engine Porsche, and I set it all up for the track. And usually 4 or 5 times a year, I get out to the track. As a matter of fact, I'm going next weekend to Willow Springs to drive and enjoy it. So, yeah, I love the excitement of the car. And I got to interview Paul Newman back in the day. He was out here when I just came to Southern California, and we went out to Riverside. And I got to sit down with Paul Newman, who I really admired. He was already pretty successful with the Bob Sharp racing team. And Paul was one of those guys where the racing community immediately thought, celebrity actor, he's not very good. He's just going to make money for for Bob Sharp Racing. And it turned out that he was an excellent, excellent driver. And I was listening to him and I said, I'd like to do that. So, but Paul had more talent than I had. And plus, he was in a position to do that. But it's really fun. It's a challenge to try to, in road racing. I like road racing, not necessarily like drag racing. So I like the techniques of trying to enter the corner correctly, hitting the apex of the corner. Your throttle is the right, your brakes, everything's right to get the very fastest time you can get around the track. It's thrilling.
Yeah, that sounds like
you should come out. I'll take you for a ride.
Oh, I would love that. That sounds like a lot of fun. I grew up in Indiana, so the Indianapolis 500 was huge in our family.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I love the Indy 500.
When you look at your career and you look at some of these opportunities that you've had, I mean, you got to go into the racetrack. It sort of broadened a bigger opportunity for you, meeting celebrities over the years. When you look back at your career, do you have some defining moments or highlights that you just cherish that you're like, wow, this job brought me to this opportunity?
So a friend of mine who was also a Porsche instructor, race driver, called me, and he has a plumbing business. He called me, he said, hey, you want to go over? I'm going over to Van Halen's house. I got to do some work there. And they also, all those guys liked racing. So they all had Porsches and they would race. And I said, sure, I'd love to go. And so I go up and we go to the property, beautiful property in the Hollywood Hills. And I'm standing there just looking around, and Eddie Van Halen comes down, walking down this pathway. And he says, wow, Dallas, I really love watching you do the weather on TV. And I said, oh my gosh, meeting you is unbelievable. One of the greatest guitarists ever, right? He says, come on, let's walk down to my little studio. So we walk down to his studio, and he has all these beautiful guitars, Amy, on the wall and everything. He takes one off and just starts playing for me. Just he and I are the only people in there.
Oh my goodness.
It's the old Kink song, You Really Got Me. dun, 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 and he plays that, and I said, "How did I get here?" I mean, I just had to pinch myself. It was Eddie Van Halen. Last year I interviewed Paul Newman. It's just it has been quite an experience, working here in Southern California, but exciting.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of the coolest things ever. I mean, I called everybody I knew and said, "Yeah,
I can see why. That is an epic story right there. It's incredible. I also look at the things that you have accomplished. I mean, you're a father. You and your wife actually put out the books. I love the
oh,
idea of putting this book out. Tell people a little bit about what it's about because it's kind of the beauty of weather in a way.
it really is." We tried to do something kind of all encompassing around Chester, our little dog. So Chester learns about the structure of the atmosphere, and he goes up in a hot air balloon. And so he goes up through the layers of the atmosphere, and it so happens that a huge thunderstorm gets close to them. The balloon gets in trouble. They all survive, but Chester learns a little about the weather. And my wife did all the work. Amy, God bless her, she did everything. I just kind of helped with the weather part. And our plan was to do a whole series. We're going to do Chester is in a tsunami, Chester is in a hurricane, a nor'easter, whatever. And we had all of these planned out. And my wife was so exhausted after doing the first book that we just kind of leveled off, and we haven't gone back to that yet. But we're kind of thinking, well, maybe whenever I retire, maybe we'll get, do the books again. But thanks for even noticing. It was fun to see people. We had quite a few people that would email us and say, "We got your little book, and I've been reading it to my kids, and they love it."
It is. It's fun. And I mean, incorporating a character, like pets, it also gives
Yeah,
people a familiarity with the weather and it sort of brings it to life in another way, which I love. That's a great idea. And I love it when people do that because any
thank
way
you.
we can educate at any level about weather is important.
That's what I wanted to do because I wanted look. I know in your career you probably have something similar, but I think one of the greatest compliments that I have received in doing weather on television is when a parent comes up to me and says, "My daughter or my son got interested in science. They may have gone into biology or something, or astronomy or whatever, because they watched you on television." And on TV, as you probably know from seeing me, I try to do a little science in every show if I can. In broadcast TV, that's not always possible. But I do try to do a little something like today. We'll do the vernal equinox of the Earth and how, the tilt of the Earth and that kind of thing. And I try to do that as much as I can. But that's my greatest compliments when they say, "My daughter, my son would watch you." And I thought I did the same thing when I was a little boy. I had a famous weathercaster, Doug Wallace. He was over in Columbus, Georgia, not even a big market. And you'd love to say me, he'd start the weather with a chalkboard. It was a chalkboard,
Right.
United States, nothing on it. And he would draw all the fronts, all the pressure systems. And it was so fun to watch him. He would get chalk all over in his hair, at the end. If you came in at the end of the weathercast, Amy, you couldn't tell what it was. It was just chalk everywhere.
Right.
But I started watching him, and he was so fascinating how he told the story of the weather, how it moves and progresses. So,
Well, a lot of people, they're impressed by those stories, how the weather used to be told. Kids are impressed by what you do in the lessons you tell. But I find that sometimes my own kids aren't too impressed. Are any of your kids into performing or into science or weather or anything?
it's interesting. My son is an attorney, and really, really, I mean, because his intelligence, his high IQ came from his mother, not from me. I was a very average guy, but he really is interested in sciences, but went down the law area. But we just got back from Moab. We went over to Arches together, just the two of us.
Beautiful. I love it. It's one of my favorite places.
Arches, and we did everything. We got on the razors, and we would go up, and we had a beautiful sunset. And he started talking to me about crepuscular rays, and he said, "Look at the sunset, Dad, and check out the particulates." And I was thinking, wow, he did listen. The two girls love weather, and they watch me. One of my daughters is she went to SMU and studied art history, and she loves the art. And I can go to like the Norton Simon with her, and she'll tell me all about, the painters and the Renaissance. And then my other daughter does hair and makeup, so she's very happy with her life. But none of the three kids wanted to, do weather on TV.
That's okay. That's okay. But it's
Good, yeah.
interesting.
How about yours? Did you say you have a?
Yeah, I have 4 children. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. None of them are interested in television. Like I say, they're more impressed, with them if I'm working with someone that they've seen on TikTok or something like that.
Right,
Yeah,
right. There
that's
they go.
impressive.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's a whole different world, isn't it? One thing I was talking about last night, we had a dust devil that I used that was from Texas that I used on the air last night. It's a great video. And I don't know if you're still really young, but one thing that I love is all the cell phones. I see things that scientists never saw before, like a tsunami. You would hear about a tsunami, right? But you would never see it.
Right.
And then now we have people in Indonesia on vacation, and they're taking videos of tsunamis and all of the tornadoes video we see. It's just amazing, isn't it?
It really is. It really is quite impressive what happens. Which brings me to this question: when you have something that's dynamic or extraordinary in the forecast or unusual, you make a point. And I love this. I want to know the origin. How did it start? Like the Dallas dip, the squirrel. How did these things start up?
It's funny because I get so excited about, communicating what I feel is so dynamic in the weather and the climate and all that. And I think what it was almost comes back from my old days of football. You got to make a move here. You've got to, get your footwork right if you're a quarterback. And so I kind of said, okay, well, look at the jet stream's going to dip down here. And I still like to draw. I think I'm one of the few TV meteorologist that still likes to draw on the air, but I'll draw using the electronic drawer. And it just kind of was part of the movement to get to, when you're doing the weather and you're standing there, you may have at a lower latitude something that you just kind of point at, right? I said, no. That's a subtropical jet stream. I got to go get that. And so I'll run down there and I'll bend. And then people started commenting on it. So, Dallas, we like the Dallas dip. You're moving. It's exciting. We had a video sent to us one time that I still have. It's a little dog like Chester. And the lady said, you've got to watch this because she starts with the news. And the little dog is sitting on the couch. Nothing's going on. There's the news. And I come on to do the weather. And I kid you not, Amy, the little dog jumps up in front of the television, gets up on its hind legs, and while I'm doing the Dallas dip, it's doing that. One of the cutest things you've ever seen in your life. But and so it just kind of became part of my delivery after people liked it. And I said, okay, well, I didn't realize I was, doing it. I realized it, but I thought, well, it's just part of what I do. And then it became like this thing, I guess.
Yeah. It's become something that people recognize. They love it. It's a little thrill in the newscast. I love it when I see, if I catch a clip of you here or there, I see it. I'm wondering, with that golf swing, are you actually a golfer?
Yes, I am. I love golf. I'm not really good at it. I remember when I started playing golf, a friend of mine said, oh, you're an ex-quarterback. You'll be great because quarterbacks are really good golfers. And after about 2 or 3 years, I said, when is this thing going to happen? I mean, it's so difficult of a game to play, but I do love golf. Yeah, it's a chance. And sometimes, Amy, for me, I'll do this thing where I'll go back to visit my folks in Georgia. And I'll put my golf clubs in a bag, and I'll go from Atlanta back to Tallahassee and just have a golf deal. It's just me. I'll take my golf clubs, and I'll stop at all these little golf courses, all the way from, say, Ellaville to Albany, the little towns that you go through to get to the Florida Panhandle, and just play golf. That's it. I'll see a few friends in Tallahassee and come back and do the same thing.
That sounds pretty sweet. That sounds like a pretty good vacation.
And I always go out usually late afternoon when it's not crowded. Because I like just the serenity. It's almost like a prayer time for me, a meditation and prayer time. Play golf. I don't throw the clubs. People say, "Well, you made a
Yeah.
terrible shot. Why aren't you mad?" I'm saying, you know what? Nobody's paying me to do this.
Yeah.
So if I'm not getting paid, same thing with race car driving. If I don't have a great time, I guess, okay, nobody's paying me to do this. This is a hobby.
At this point, Dallas, in your career, is there anything that you want to do that you haven't done, or anything that you want to see that you haven't seen?
Wow, that's a great question, Amy. I think for me at this point, I just love doing it so much. I'm trying to figure out, and I think a lot of people, men and women, when they get to my age and get to where they are in their careers, you try to figure out, okay, there's only so many quarters in the game, and I'm in the fourth quarter. So I think, okay, do I want to keep working, which I enjoy? Or do I want to take a little bit more time to do things like with my wife or with my grandkids and things like that? And that's where I kind of, at that point right now, I'm trying to figure, okay, what do I do? I still love working and I enjoy the audience. But, I can't just hop off and run up to Mammoth, right, in the middle of the week.
Right.
Because I have a job. So I think that's probably what I'm looking. And then from a day to day, I really love some of the great new graphics that I call them the young folks come up with that I can use and implement on my shows, because I do like the show to be not only informative, but in a way that you get the data you want, the 7-day forecast, but why the weather and the earth sciences happen the way they do. And now I can get great graphics. Like last night I had the Dust Devil, right? And then I had a beautiful graphic that my producer, Philip, made for me that shows, the heating of the earth, the rising of the warm air, the cooler air circulating, the Coriolis parameters. I mean, it was like so much fun.
Well, making it entertaining is one of the things you do best, Dallas. And I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me a little bit.
Oh, it was so great, Amy. I feel like I would like to have another conversation with you because we talk too much about me. I want to hear all about you
Right,
too.
right. I mean, when I think about you, we have a connection a little bit because we were a Jeopardy question together. Do you remember that when they put our names up together?
Oh, that wasn't that great?
That was so cool.
Professor called me from Florida State when that happened. He said, you've made it when you're on Jeopardy. Okay, I made it together.
That was our sign. So I guess our names mean that we were born to do the weather. Do you feel that way?
I do. With Amy Freeze and Dallas Rains, I tell my mom, and people, I'm sure people ask you, oh, that's a stage name. I said, no, Rains is the family name. We go all the way back to, the 1800s, my family, Rains. And then Dallas was the doctor who delivered me. Back when I was a little boy, the doctor would actually come to your house with a black bag. The shots were here, and I'd run and hide. But his Dr. Robert Dallas. And so my mom loved him. So I got Dallas as a first name and Rains as a family name. So meant to be, huh?
It is meant to be. Before I leave you, you know what I want to do with you so that I have this memory forever? I want to do it tonight at 11 with you.
Okay, let's do. I love that. When I go out in public, we always do that for our last thing. So when you're ready, get ready. You got to shoot right fist up.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Tonight.
At 11.
11. Yeah.
I love it. It's so fantastic to see you. And I just wish all the best for you. So many people admire your career and admire who you are. You've been such a great example over the years of being a station scientist and doing such a great job in your community. So LA is a big place to do it, but you've done it right.
Thank you so much. And to all of our viewers out there, your viewers and other meteorologists that are interested in TV or working, keep up the great work. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Alice. See ya.